Bam! Hello, everyone. I'm Rayceen Pendarvis, and I'm here with my wonderful, amazing guest. Introduce yourself to everyone.
I'm Gina Nicole Brown.
I love that, Gina Nicole Brown. It sounds like a star. You know, I know you from various projects. I also know you as Black Mama Cook Project,
Yes.
which got over 2 million hits on, and you were the Black Mama whose fried chicken was the best. And how did that feel being in that experience?
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. They separated us, so for the shoot, so we were in different locations. I never met the other moms. And I actually told them that fried chicken and macaroni and cheese aren't even my best dishes for soul food. But they still won, which was great. So it was really cool. It was really, really cool. Yeah.
I mean, wow. How did you hear about that project? How did you come into that project?
Yeah, so a few friends of mine in the comedy world listed something about it, like, oh, if you want to do it, if you think that you're good at cooking. So I had to submit a video, actually, and talk about my cooking and some of the things that, where I got my inspiration for soul food and why I make it and why I think I'm good. So, yeah, I submitted, and they
had no idea, no idea you would end up winning.
No.
And I mean, and I know it had to be like so overwhelming when you start looking at the hits building and the numbers building to know that you got over 2 million views.
Yeah, and that's just on YouTube. I mean, the video itself it is up to over 11 million now. And what happens is, for me, since I go back and forth between DC and New York, I've actually gotten stopped on the New York City subway. Don't I know? And it's a little off-putting, frankly, because there's millions of people in New York. So to get stopped on a subway train, and there's lots of trains, so for you to be on one train with somebody who knows you, it's pretty wild. Yeah.
I think it's incredible. I think as your star rises, you have that face, you have that likable, the girl next door kind of face, and I think you talked about comedy, and I think it's like, wow, it's amazing. So tell us about this whole comedy experience for you.
Yeah, so I think a lot of my creative journey started with comedy. I started comedy about 6 years ago, and just sort of on a whim. Like, I've always been a writer, and so I wrote, but I didn't perform, and I always liked to just sort of be in the background. And somebody was like, oh, you should see if, some of these things that you write if they get a hit, So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll see what I can do. So I sent out a bunch of notes, and I found a place to do an open mic, and I had 50 people I know show up. I just sent out a few notes to colleagues and whatnot. 50 people like, what? You're gonna go and do something on the mic? I didn't even really have jokes well put together. I just knew sort of topics I was gonna talk about. And it was good, it was really great. And that place just sort of became sort of a warm spot for me to go and try out jokes. And so I've just been growing and doing comedy different places all over. I've even performed in Aruba, so it's been fun.
You're building your brand, and that's important. You have your hands in so many areas. What are some of the other things that you're working on?
I do, and in fact, comedy is just a small piece, frankly. I still love writing. I've written a book, and I'm in process of a couple more. I have a poetry book, and I have a memoir. Which is really an important piece for me about sort of being a bisected individual in the sense that I'm biracial, bisexual, and adopted, and all these different threads that go through me, making me sort of who I am, and still trying to figure that out, frankly. So the memoir is a big piece. A one-woman show is a big piece, which pulls together some of my history from being adopted and some other things that have happened in my life in terms of abuse and some other things. So writing is a big, big part of what I do, and performance art in general, however I can get those words out and share, because my story sometimes helps somebody else who
and that's
has
so
a
important.
story.
It's so important.
Yeah.
I think most people don't realize, especially when they look at comedians, they don't realize that most comedians come from a place of having some kind of pain, and are able to turn that pain around and make others laugh, and then give them messages in between, because a lot of times some of the stuff that you do, and I've seen your set, you hit people with a message and you leave it there for a few minutes and then you go out the door and you're laughing, or it stays with you.
It stays with you. Yeah, I think somebody once asked me, how do you make the differentiation between your funny writing and your more serious writing? Because there's not that much that's in between. It's really one or the other, frankly. And I just write. And sometimes it takes a comedic bent, and sometimes it's more serious. And I let the words just be the words. And however it hits you, that's fine.
And that's power. That speaks to your power as an artist, and it speaks to your power of the ability as a writer to tell a story, whether or not it's funny or not it's serious, but you tell a story. You work in truth.
Right, exactly. It's always truth.
And when you work in truth, it can be sometimes very funny.
And
sometimes it can be very serious. And I think it's just an amazing thing because you are a truth teller. And you know, people, you have this persona off stage. You're very quiet. You're very laid back. Soon as you hit the stage, you're just like boom. You know, I see you, and you even carry your purse like Aretha Franklin wherever you go. So it's like you carry that little purse with you, and you carry it with you, and it's like, it's almost like your security blanket.
It is. It's just like this. I lived in a foster home when I was little, and I remember being sort of, interviewed to be adopted, and I always say, imagine a kid having to interview, for the role of, can I be a part of this family? And I remember that because I was almost 5 when I was adopted, so I was in foster home, and I think a part of it, my mom used to say that I wouldn't share. I'm not a good sharer. And I think it was because I had to have all my things. All my things were my things in that home. And then when I got into a family, I still only wanted my things because it was so important that this was mine. So sadly, I think the purse is just, it might be a manifestation of that. I'm not sure. I'm just thinking about it now. I think that it could be what that is, frankly.
But that's an amazing story, and it's an amazing story because you're not alone. There's so many, there are millions, especially of children who have been in the system, and who have survived that amazing system, and be okay with it, and be all right with it, and come through the journey and understand that they healed, and they use art to continue to heal and to nurture. And that's what you do. You're a teacher, you're a healer, you're a preacher, you're a poet, you're a writer. You are a Renaissance woman.
I do a few things,
And I love that. I love that about you because, and I love it, the fact that even though you say you have things that you like to hold on, but you're also a giver.
I do. I think that was instilled in us when we were little. We always helped other families out, and everybody has a story, and there's always something that you can gain from helping somebody else out. So it's hard, but even when I go to a dark place sometimes, if I go to help somebody, there's something about that just sort of helps me get out of where I am. I've always helped the homeless. And I have a soft spot for children, despite my making jokes about them. And I do make jokes about children and how I don't really like them. But I do. I really do have a spot for children, especially children who've come from some challenges.
And that's important. And that's important that you sympathize and you understand their journey, and you bring them in and let them know it's okay. And you create safe spaces through your writing, through your comedy, through your acting. You create these characters that are truth tellers. And that people can relate to. They see the honesty and the character and how you bring it alive. And I think that's so important when you're able to do that on so many levels. And if you think about levels and dreams, what are some of your dreams?
So I have written a one-woman show, and I'm putting some finishing touches on it. My dream would be to perform that in a black box theater Probably in New York. So I've done one play in New York, and just performing in New York, be it comedy or acting, is so different. And a play is live acting, just like comedy. You can just sort of feel the energy, which is a little bit different from when I do on-screen acting, right? And I like to feel that and get the feedback. So a big dream for me would be to have that one-man show and at least start it, in New York, and then just do it other places, and share. There's a story in there. There's a story in there.
Well, they always say if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. New York is the proving ground, the breeding ground. Yeah. And it's just, it's something about live theater, something about being on stage. Yeah. People don't understand when you go on stage, it's a drug. The moment they give you that mic, the moment you walk into, whether it is a room of 50 or 500,
absolutely.
There is something about an artist, the ability to notice the moment you got them.
Yeah. And it's a challenge because you sometimes don't got them.
Yeah. Sometimes
you don't got them.
Sometimes you don't get them. Sometimes you have those moments where you be like, I'm giving y'all the best that I got, and y'all not getting it.
Pouring it out. Work with me.
And they're standing there like.
But you're right. And every single time before I go on stage, I'm like, why do I do this? This is so vulnerable. Why do I just open this wound? But as soon as you hear, you get a feedback, whether it's a story or whether it's a poem or a joke, right? You feel some sort of energy, and it's the solve that I need for any bruise I have.
It's everything. Yeah. Do you get this? I get this every time I come off stage. I come off the stage, and there's a moment where I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, what's going on? What's happening? Yeah. It's like, what is going on?
What just happened?
You can't explain it, and it's like you're coming down off this like a roller coaster ride, and it's like you get this big feeling when you go up, and when you come down, and that whole feeling, and then when you get off.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster, and it's a high for me. That's the only kind of high that I get. So for me, it's perfect. I mean, it's my drug of choice.
Hey, how about that? It's the best drug. I feel like everybody should get on stage. Everybody should perform. Everyone should have that experience of what it is, because it's and then it's yours, and it's just a moment you can control or own or claim. It's that claiming your space.
Yeah.
And saying, this is mine, I created it, and can't nobody take it away from me.
No, it's mine. It's like my purse.
Yeah, it's like your purse. There you go. Like your purse. It's the stage is your purse, and can't nobody take it away from you. And I think that is important, and I think that, if folks were to leave an experience with you, they come in, what would you like their takeaway to be with an evening with Gina Brown? What would you like them to feel or say or experience?
I want you to almost be satiated. I want you to have a fullness. I want to share an energy with you. I'm very big on energy. I read it in people, and if it's not there, it's okay. But I want you to feel mine, and I'm hoping that it does something for you. I hope it's some kind of a food in some capacity, and if that is simply that you laughed, great. But if I leave you like, that's okay too. I like that feeling. I want you to feel that you took a bite out of something and you're almost satiated.
Wow. I've seen the amazing documentary on Toni Morris, and there was a question asked of her by somebody who said, whenever I read your book, I put it down, I pick it up, put it down, pick it up. And she said, if you did that, that was what the book was supposed to. You're supposed to experience something. You're supposed to have that. So you experience something with that book, and whatever that takeaway, up, down, that was what it was supposed to give you and make you feel like that. And I think artists are supposed to sometimes make people be uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Make people think. Yeah. Make people laugh, make them cry. Then as an artist, you've done your job.
Yeah, and I'm okay if you cry, because I might be crying too. I try to keep it together on stage, but I did a performance once where I didn't keep it together. It was, you know, it necessarily wasn't comedy at all. And it was okay. So I cried halfway through, and I think I made the audience cry. But at the end, we all grew.
How about
right?
that?
We all
You
grew.
laughed, you cried.
Yeah.
There have been times I
Yeah.
poured out myself.
Yeah.
And then there are times when you go blank.
Yeah.
Or you're going
Yeah.
through problems or some traumas, or, you know, like we are working through this
Right,
now.
right.
If you're hearing stuff in the background, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
The building is in transition, but we're making it work. And we are experiencing all
Yeah.
kinds as artists, and we're pulling it through.
Yeah.
And I
That's what
think
it is.
it's so, you know, I think that speaks volume of how we're able to experience and use the background. You know, I can use the
Yeah.
background noise as part of fueling us to have a good interview.
Absolutely.
And you make it an experience for those who are watching and viewing, and you say, well, what's that banging in the background?
Right.
Child, that's part of the experience, child. That's the
Right.
other folks banging and raffling and shaking and creating. That's part of the juices of this
Yeah.
experience
Yeah.
of artistry.
Yeah, we
Of
find a way.
flowing, we're creating.
Yeah, we find a way to come through.
So how can people follow you?
Oh, you can follow me, GinaBrown.com. And then on most of the socials, I'm at Gina Nicole Brown. So that's, you know, any social, Twitter, Instagram, and a couple of Facebook pages, and I believe that there are Gina Nicole Brown as well. So, but yeah, my site, GinaBrown.com, has everything.
Bam, get you some. And thank you for watching.